Cobra Command, take to the skies on a daring rescue mission. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
And I'm Sean.
And that's it.
That's everybody.
Because everyone else has abandoned us.
Why have you forsaken me?
Not necessarily true. They'll probably be back in another episode, maybe even next episode. Who can say? But right now, you have the pleasure of listening to just me and Sean hash out the details of Cobra Command.
It's always an intimate time if you listen to this with just a little bit of wine and candlelight. It's always a good time.
Sean, I publish the episodes at 8 in the morning on Fridays.
Well, if you black out the windows and you start early, you can still do that.
All right. We're talking about a Data East game here. Do you look for that label at all? Do you ever care about who made the game before you start playing these games on Nostalgia?
Yeah, and I would say that Data East is one of those companies that I prefer not make my games.
Yeah, they don't have a great track record. I think I knew that even going into Nostalgia when we started doing this show, but it really has stuck out as a name that, and I think just for some reason, Micronix comes to mind too. It's just like a company I didn't like.
I would say the same about both. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I see the logo for Data East, it's not welcoming. It doesn't make me think like I'm about to have a good experience.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good modern analog to that, and I know that there are many. I just can't really think of any. Like, what's a good modern terrible game?
I don't know
Studio,
if it's...
sorry.
yeah, Studio, right. Because I would say that, nowadays, nothing that I would purchase would line up with, Data. We've trained ourselves to know at this age what kind of games we're going to like. Honestly, when was the last time you bought a game at full price and said, I hate this?
It was probably Xbox and PS2 era, I think.
Yeah, because we were still young enough at that time that, you could be fooled by, a movie tie-in game or, the sports game of the year would fool you into thinking, well, it's another year, so it's going to be better. And then they actually, remove features.
Mm-hmm.
So I think things like that happen, but I actually can't think about the last time I paid $60 for a game and had to, return it. Yeah,
no, I'm on the same page there, but, but we get to relive it with the Data East.
Yeah, now imagine you paid $60 for Cobra Command, and you get to listen to us talk about it for an additional 30 to 40 minutes. This is a role-playing podcast. We like to put people in the zone. Sean, what is Cobra Command?
Cobra Command is it's basically I guess it's a shmup with adventure elements. It's like... If you just removed all of the context and you were just watching something marked as player character, and it would almost look like it's just a helicopter adventure game, I guess.
Yeah, it does have a feel of a shmup, but actually the more I played the game, I didn't put it there. I thought it was a shmup going in, but it really is more of a action adventure game where you're saving hostages and you're shooting down enemies, and it's separated through stages, but it's not so it's not like Area 1, Area 2. It does have a seamless nature of storytelling to it. So I'd put it more in the action adventure column.
I think I'd agree.
And a helicopter, that's something different. I think the other helicopter games that we played were Tiger Heli, which was definitely a shmup, but that was a vertical shmup where you didn't have to worry about... I think you could shoot on land and in the air.
Yes. But
you didn't have to worry about anything other than just making it to the end of the stage. You could choose not to shoot anything.
Yeah. So we have that, which is a bit more like an expected, what you would think of as a helicopter game. And then we had one of my personal favorites, Raid on Bungling Bay, which was a lot more technical and kind of abstractly helicopter-y.
So what do you think about like the appeal of the helicopter? Like, is that an appealing thing for you to want to fly? Like, is that different than like a spaceship or just a normal fighter jet? Like, are you excited by controlling a helicopter?
I guess like just in the canon of video games, I look forward to helicopters. When I think about that, I just sort of think about Vice City and Grand Theft Auto. Like San Andreas, like I get the helicopter, you can do whatever you want with that. But beyond that, I guess not really. But I guess I don't know what my answer is.
Yeah, I just feel like in a war setting, a helicopter is one of the like lesser appealing things that I'd want to be flying.
But it's got novelty to it. Like it's not a plane. You can go in any direction you want. I kind of get where they're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the fact that you're also rescuing hostages, a helicopter makes sense for that kind of mission. You can just like stay stationary above the ground and drop a rope, and then they come up, and then you can. There's room for them. I don't think that would be realistic in a fighter jet.
Yeah, you can't really just hang a rope from a fighter jet and hope they pick it up at like Mach 5.
Right. I think there was a game though where we were in like a spaceship that rescued hostages, right? Wasn't that I mean, there's so many of these. I
was going to mention that I did not expect there to be this many games in the NES. Only less than 200 games in, we've got like 3 or 4 games where there's a rescue hostage mechanic that they just sort of like file in. Like it's just such a specific thing to see so often.
The 1973 Olympics are like fresh in people's minds at this time. So I think that's really just like what it came down to.
Exactly.
I think rescuing hostages was also a big thing in 80s movies. So that would explain, because video games at this time are leveraging a lot of the popularity of, that action blockbuster genre that kind of started in 85 and is now like booming.
Yeah, I can buy that. Yeah.
But what do you think about the setting of Indonesia and Thailand?
It's sort of unsettling that they've got such a specific. Like usually these games have been trying to shy away from making them contextual, political or contextual in the real world at all. Like usually it's like some stand-in for the United States against some stand-in for the Soviet. For the USSR, but now that they're just going to say like, yeah, you're in Sumatra and Java and the South China Sea. It's interesting at the very least.
I don't think I can list many other games that take place in like Indonesia.
No.
And I don't know enough about like this area to know if like there was a conflict going on or not. But it just seems like a very specific choice. Tie that with the helicopter thing. I'm just not sure like American kids were ready for this game.
I guess it's just like it's close enough to Vietnam while not being Vietnam. I mean, helicopters are big there too. This is now hardcore history.
Right. All right. Well, to get away from hardcore history, you are General Stephen Power in this game.
It's a great name.
Yeah, great name, right? Does it matter? Do you care about like the names of made-up characters in these NES games where the story is all told in the manual?
This isn't a ridiculous enough name for me to care. If it's a super ridiculous name, then yes, hell yes.
Right, because I read in the manual, just the backstory and the Stephen Power thing. And Stephen Power, first off, reminds me of that when Homer becomes Max Power. That's like, that would have been a better pun there. But... I just don't think, like, just say it's me. Just say, like, I have to be in the helicopter doing all this crazy shit.
That would make me feel better if I was a kid during this, yeah.
So we're talking about the helicopter a lot. Let's talk about how it actually controls in the game. Because there is an interesting mechanic of, like, it tries to simulate how you would be flying a helicopter in a side-scrolling 2D fashion where, as you're moving, the helicopter kind of leans... forward or back depending on your momentum, and then that also controls like how you shoot, because if the helicopter's leaning, you wouldn't be able to necessarily shoot a straight shot. What'd you think of that?
I kind of liked it. It made it feel a bit more dynamic, and it definitely raises the skill ceiling. Because whenever I actually don't know. In the Tiger Heli, I think you just fired straight ahead, and if you dropped a bomb, it would drop like 5 pixels ahead or something along those lines. I kind of like that there's a bit more to it than just it being a one-to-one relationship to like where your character is on the screen to where you're shooting.
It's weird at first, like it takes some getting used to, and to be honest, I was not a big fan of it at first until I realized that, if the motions of your helicopter like sway and they have like, you have to aim with that in mind, you have to take the game slow. You're a helicopter. You're not that fighter jet. So you can't be just like cruising through all the various enemies. You kind of have to like find your enemy, lock into them, and take them down, and then progress as you move on. Did you find that as well?
Yeah, in the very beginning when I was getting used to it felt like, because the way the enemies spawn in this game, I think it's just based on like your position, and then if you move back and forth, that enemy will spawn again. But it felt like the timing of enemy spawns made it so that you had to literally crawl through the level. It was like every like quarter second of scroll time, there'd be a new helicopter that you have to like stop, aim, and fire at. So it kind of like, it's not great for pacing. Like I think if they switched the spawn mechanics up a little bit, it would feel a little bit more fluid. But yeah, if you're going for this a bit more like precise, and you're not supposed to be going at this at 100 miles an hour, then I guess they did the job. Right,
and I can't say whether that was actually like an improvement or not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a form of realism, but to go back to your spawning thing, I found that to be a major problem, because when I was playing the game fast, or even if I was getting tired of being slow for a minute and just kind of wanted to chug through the next section, I found it very hard to dodge things in this game.
So it sort of had I had two different feelings, kind of exact opposite of each other. It's hard to do that, but there are also sections in this game where you could just ignore enemies, because enemies don't really linger. If you're going towards another helicopter, they're just gonna fly past you, and it's not until the later levels that you get ones that are sort of trying to get in your way more. So in some instances, it could feel way too easy if you just ignore everything, like in a lot of games that we've played. It's just an uneven difficulty curve, I'd say.
Yeah, I always feel like a game that you can avoid enemies, even though that might be helpful to like a player who needs a break. I always see that as just a bad sign for a game in general, because it's kind of lazy game design philosophy to make it so that enemies don't necessarily matter and they're just pre-programmed to spawn in specific spots, Yeah,
you're just sort of banking on the behaviors that people that play games do. It's just like, oh, I have to fight this thing, so I will, and not really realizing that, like, oh, I could just go past them.
Right, and when you get damage to your helicopter, it's first off, it's nice that it's not just a one-shot kill. We're so used to that in games, but the helicopter will actually gradually start to catch on fire and slowly descend if it's left alone. I've never seen something like that before in one of these games, and I thought it was so cool that they decided to do that.
I like that a lot too. Like I think there's like 2 stages to like visible damage. Like you can take a couple shots and you'll still look the same, but then on the first one, if you just leave your controller alone, you will very slowly start to descend, and you can kind of see fire or smoke, and then another shot will make it so that no matter how hard you fight, you're still going. You're very slowly crashing, and then the last one will blow you up. I really like that too, just for the immersion of it.
Yeah, there's like a sense of dread in that final one, because it is interesting that you're able to control while still being on fire, and you feel like this pushback. But I think it's exactly when you hit like 0 health, so you're technically already dead, but it lets you, like, it lets that sink in.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know how other games would have applied that so far. It would be weird with, like, a human protagonist to do something like that, where they start, like, stumbling and then they fall to the ground or something. Like, that would be maybe too creepy for an NES game.
Yeah.
But it's done really nicely here, and that kind of makes me wish that it also happened to enemies.
Oh, yeah. That does make sense.
They just kind of vanish, right? They almost, like, evaporate when you hit them. Yeah, they don't even have, like, an explosion or anything.
Yeah, it almost feels inconsequential whenever you do something to an enemy. It's just like, oh, now it's gone. But it's only because of the context of it happening to you that I guess it feels like that, though.
You can fire both, I guess, like, regular bullets and then missiles as well, between A and B. That's pretty basic, and I like that you can fire them at the same time, because I find myself just, like, hitting both across my thumb. Like, I just hold my thumb sideways instead and just spam it that way. And I'm fine with that. Like, whatever. It's arcadey in a sense. Mm-hmm. And, the real meat and potatoes of this game is its upgrades. I mean, there's upgrades for the gun, the missile, the armor, the engine. You can even change how you rescue people, switching from a rope to an eventually upgraded ladder.
Yeah, that's another, I love upgrade systems, especially when you can sort of customize which one you want to use at that time, as opposed to it just being a pickup that, this is you now. So I think that allows a little bit more expression and how you want to play the game. I guess I'll bring it up now. I really couldn't get that far in this game, though, as much as I've been talking about it, because I think I ran into a bug.
What's the bug?
So you know how you have to, like, blow the top off of these fortresses?
Yes, which we also have to talk about, because they're not. Maybe some of them are, but not all of them are very clearly, like, labeled of when you should be breaking into these things.
I mean, it's like, it's talked about in the manual, but the mechanics of it aren't really spoken about. Like, there's, like, a little, like, I forgot what you would call it, like the top piece. Yeah, like, there's the top piece that you have to blow up, and that, like, destroys the bulk of the fortress. Then you can go down, and there's, like, a little section of underground helicoptering, which is interesting. But the second one, like, on the first level, I just unloaded on this thing, and it wouldn't break. I don't know if I was shooting the wrong piece, if it wasn't, like, the very top piece like the last one, but I spent, like, 5 lives, like, a couple resets on this thing. I was just like, I don't know how to get past this. I don't know if it was a bug or if I'm just an idiot. So most of my research on this game had to be through watching people play, because I probably spent 45 to an hour just trying to get past that second, like, keystone.
Yeah, was that the building one?
Yeah,
like
it's like
pyramid-looking thing. Not pyramid, but made of some kind of Colosseum structure.
It's the first level, and if you try to go past it, you can't go past it. That's the end of the level. So I don't know if I just didn't really understand the layout of the level, or if the game was fucking with me, but I don't know. I mean, it seems like you didn't have that problem.
Well, because what I was going to say is, and this gets back to, because I'm looking at it as an image now, and this gets back to what I was talking about earlier, that these fortresses, you would think, like, oh, okay, well, maybe I shoot down the door, or maybe I have to blow the whole thing up. Like, maybe I have to do a certain amount of damage. For that one specifically, you had to shoot, there was, like, a star on the top.
That's what I was shooting at.
I'm just making sure. Just making sure. Yeah. No, because, assuming that, because that's what I was able to do. I shot the star. I'm assuming it's a star. It looks like a compass thing. Yeah,
it's a starish thing.
Yeah. And eventually, like, the whole building will collapse. So then you just go underground from there. But, that's like, for me, that's a problem. Because I guess, like, the star one, at least it's a star. But other times it's just, like, a circle or a very specific, like a little outline on something. I wasn't a big fan of this idea that you couldn't just, like, fight a boss or something instead, and then that would just, like, move you on to the next thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I was just playing it wrong or if it's the game's fault. I'm going to err on the side of I played it wrong, but it's a very odd situation for me to be like to like have a game like stonewall me like that. I'm good at understanding games.
Yeah, I bet you are.
Yeah, so it was just weird that happened to me. So,
and you used missiles.
I used both. I was doing the same thing you were. I was just
firing
holding both buttons. Yeah, I was tapping both buttons.
All right. Well, I cannot solve your mystery here, but maybe call the Nintendo Power hotline.
I will.
Get on the phone with them and see what they have to say.
Yeah.
All right. So pretend though for a minute that we were because we were talking about the upgrades when this whole thing started. There's something about having this many upgrades. I didn't count them beforehand, but it's got to be over 20 plus upgrades in the game. And even though they are like basic ideas of things, like you start out with regular missiles, and then you get 2 missiles, and then it becomes a firebomb thing that like it
has an arc to it.
Yeah, it has like an arc to it. The fact that it doesn't just like go from missiles to like, this thing explodes everything on the screen. The fact that there's actually progression throughout for each of your things, too. We're talking about the guns, the missiles, the armor. Like, the fact that you have that across the game, I think actually gives some life where this game might have otherwise felt tired after, like, stage 2 or 3.
Yeah, I agree. Like, that's sort of what I was getting at with the player expression thing. Like, you can... Like, if you're not feeling... shooting with the twin, you can switch to like a different kind of missile. I'm always a fan of that kind of customization. And
that menu layout screen for all that information is really nice.
Yeah, I like the design of it. I think that it's weird that your heads-up display, like there's some information in that menu that should just always be available to you. Like the amount of hits you have left is buried in there, like in a sub-menu of the sub-menu.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
Like that should just be in the bottom right corner. Like I think that's that is a trope of games that I don't know why they tried to move away from it. Maybe it was again for that realism of not having a HUD, but that they're like 30 years early for that kind of talk.
Right. I think they even have there's a score hidden on that menu too, right? Like that, yeah, because it's never on the screen otherwise. And to be honest, that's a great compromise for everybody. Because some people back then liked high scores, other people could care less about them. I think just imagine if you after beating a game it told you your score, but never while you were playing. Like, what do you think of that?
I mean, that kind of feels like doesn't. Like kind of Resident Evil and the Capcom games kind of do that. They'll at the end of a level at least will tell you how good you did. Like, oh, you got an A, or you got
something like that, right?
So I mean, I'm used to that, but it's interesting in a game like this to see that.
Yeah, because again, that's what makes it like a hybrid shmup action adventure game. The action-adventure part of this, the rescuing the hostages and everything like that, I don't know now. Were you able to get to that part where you would rescue a hostage?
Oh, yeah. I rescued a good amount. There's that first... there's that first fortress that has the capstone. I was able to blow that one up, and I was able to go down and rescue a bunch that sort of filed out of a underground building. And it felt fine.
Yeah, it wasn't actually that satisfying.
Yeah.
I think they could have done something more with that, especially with the fact that you have to dangle this rope down and then they climb it. Maybe I'm asking for too much, but it should have had even a sound or something to it to make it feel like, you saved this person's day or something like that.
It does do a very low bit rate. Thank you.
Oh, really?
It's just like.
That's funny because I must have not have been having my volume up high enough because I never heard it. But
I mean, like it's
okay,
not.
I
It's
appreciate
not much.
that.
It's not much. I mean, my problems with it is I think there should have been a bit more risk reward. Like it was like, yeah, you got to go and get them, but the level isn't designed in a way that like this is in a riskier part of the map, or you'll have to deal with this enemy to safely extract this this hostage. It was just sort of a pickup.
Well, I think that's because this hostage thing as like a requirement part of the game was added into the NES version. The arcade version, I can't say whether they had hostages or not, but it was definitely just like a score bonus and not something that like you had to do.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. The arcade version actually like automatically scrolls. It's an auto scroller. You have no choice but to just keep moving forward, and I find that to be very bizarre and probably an entirely different game.
Yeah, that is weird that they decided to change that. I mean, I guess it does make it a bit more unique that you can play this at your own pace. I guess I allowed them for changing up that kind of mechanic. I don't know. Yeah,
and I don't know about you, but seeing the little hostage guys and having just played Blaster Master, it made me kind of wish that there were sections in this game where you like dock the helicopter and get out and have to do like some, Ikari Warriors style gameplay.
Yeah, not all games can be Blaster Master, Mike.
That's true, but it would have helped. It would have helped in Cobra Command's case. And, I'm sure some people want us to like go more in depth with the upgrades, but they're kind of like, they're just multipliers of the various things that you've already, that you start out with, right?
Yeah, I mean, it has the same effect as like that increase in power as any other game that has them. I mean, it feels better than most, but there's nothing really new to what they're doing with the upgrades.
Yeah, and we have a stationary final boss in this game. I don't know how that's not very intimidating.
Yeah, this is another thing that I haven't really liked in a lot of these games is when you just end up fighting fortresses or just like, what was the last game we played that it was like this? It was just like you have to shoot the things with the blinking lights and there's no intimidation factor. There's no like, oh, wow, that's the boss. It's a thing and you have to blow up the thing.
Yep. Yeah, I don't, and I think that was like the case for most of this game. I never beat these games, so I only have for reference, what I'm watching. But there's just something about like, I don't know, all of the normal enemies in this game you take on, they move, they have life, they're realistic, they're like, tanks and helicopters, just like you. And then all of a sudden, there's just like...
just like me.
Yeah, they're just like you. But then, like, all of a sudden, it just becomes about, like, these heads that stick out of fortresses that, like, shoot beams at you. And I'm just like, what happened? What happened to this game?
It's realism, Mike.
Yeah, it became a shell of itself. But maybe this is what happens in underground Thailand. Like, maybe there are bears that shoot fireballs.
Are there bears?
There's bear statues. See? Bears would be cool. Bear statues? Meh, take it or leave it. I don't see the point in that. I think that this game should have ended with like a one-on-one helicopter showdown. That would have been really cool.
I would be into it.
The whole time you were fighting player 2.
Yeah, that's another funny thing in the manual. It's like, it has it set up. It's like describing what the controllers do. It's like controller 1 controls player 1, controller 2 does not control anybody. There is no second player. It's like it's scolding you for assuming there would be. I mean, yeah, it didn't hurt my feelings that there wasn't a 2-player mode, but it's odd that there wasn't.
Yeah, it kind of, in a way, it's acknowledging that it knows by now that 2-player games are standard, but they refuse to include it.
Yeah.
You know, like, we know you were expecting a 2-player game, so we did include a button layout for the second controller. Unfortunately, it does nothing. Would you have liked this game more if it was called Stiffen Wolf?
I don't really know what you mean there.
It apparently, deep in the code for the game, there is another title screen that can be found called Stiffen Wolf.
Well, I guess it sounds pretty like German, I guess. I guess it reminds me more of Steppenwolf.
Yes, I think so. It also sounds like maybe a naughty play on words there.
Yeah, Stiffen the Wolf. I don't know what that means, but...
I don't know what that means either, but just like stiff, I guess, wouldn't necessarily fly with Nintendo. I just don't, this game was never referred to as Stiffen Wolf anywhere, so why have it in the game's code as like a fully designed title screen?
Maybe it's a shout out to Dr. Stefan Wolf, who's an orthodontist in Munich, Germany.
Oh, okay. I like that idea. I was thinking it was actually an Easter egg by Zack Snyder for the Snyder Cut, which features Steppenwolf, the DC villain.
Is that a DC villain?
Yeah.
I thought it was a band.
It is. It's both.
Oh, okay.
There are so many villains in comic books that they can be anything.
Yeah, my favorite's always Crazy Quilt. Crazy
Quilt is up there. We're not going to list them all off right now because I literally just drew a blank. But instead, we're going to just talk about the essential games list, right?
Yeah, about it.
Yeah, let's just talk about it. It's a list where Sean, myself, Joe when he decides to come back to the show, and Sam when he also, I guess, decides to come back. That's where we vote on whether these games are essential. And you know what, Sean?
Let's do it.
We're going to do it right now. Let's do the essential games list. Okay, real fast from me. Here's the thing about a game like Cobra Command. I know for a fact, after playing this game, that this was a game that I really enjoyed reading the manual, reading about like all the different things that could potentially happen in this game, looking at the upgrades, like, oh my gosh, there's all these different stages and it takes place in a unique setting and you got to rescue these hostages. Like, all of this sounds so great. And it's not that the final product is bad, but if I describe this game to you, there is a almost 100% chance that you're going to be let down by the way I describe it versus how it actually plays out. There's just something about the, I'm going to call it the game design here. The way that the game plays and the way that the enemies are placed and the length of the levels and the fact that it's not satisfying to rescue hostages. There's just something about all of that puts together a very mediocre experience at the end of the day. And to be honest, I'd love to see another game try all the things that we talked about here, but that the final product actually plays well. I felt at the end of my Cobra Command play session that I knew this was going to be a game later on in Nostalgia where if somebody name dropped it, I wouldn't even necessarily remember how the game played. And so for that reason, it can't be on the essential games list. Sean?
And just like that, it cannot be on the essential games list since we have to have over 50%. But I will. I'm gonna echo that. I mean, if this is a game, I was pleasantly surprised by how the game played, from what I expected out of Data East, from what I expected out of the promotional material that I saw before I played the game. It just seemed like it was going to be pretty blah. So I was actually kind of into it until I either hit a bug or some rare instance where I was just lost in a game and couldn't read what it was trying to tell me, and I had to stop. So just by virtue of the fact that I couldn't progress means I can't put this on the essential games list at all. It's not even in the running for that. So I guess I'm just going to have to agree with you there.
Yeah, now a game called Cobra Commander, now that has a shot.
Yeah.
A game where you command cobras, or maybe you're the leader of Cobra Kai, or maybe you're the head villain of the G.I. Joes, right? Isn't that? Yeah. Okay, good.
Like if it was some kind of open world management game about running that dojo, I would be really into that.
Or just like a 4X game where you're trying to get all the Cobras in the world to overtake the humans.
I see when I think about it, if it was in that context, it would probably just be like you pretending to play a flute and the Cobra would come out of the jar or the basket or something. Like, that's what I would think.
Well, plastic instruments need to make a comeback, so a plastic flute accessory would be great.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, a lot of people would want me to mention, and I waited until after the Essential Games list, that there is another game called Choplifter that apparently a lot of people think Cobra Command ripped off Choplifter, which was a very successful arcade game and had a lot of other ports on a bunch of different other systems. And to be honest, the only reason why I didn't really feel the need to talk about it earlier is because I checked that game out too, and it's about the same thing. So who cares if Cobra Command ripped it off if they're both virtually the same game?
So that didn't come to NES?
As far as I could tell, it did not come to the NES.
Okay, well at least we won't have to
looks
play
like
it again.
It went to the Sega Master System and the Apple II and the Commodore 64, and here it is, finally, it did come to the NES. We will play this bad boy at some point.
Can't wait for the deja vu.
Yeah, I don't even know when, though, because it's not on my list right now, so we might be playing this game years from now.
And we'll harken back to this.
But you know what? We do have some important news. Next week, we are playing Dr. Chaos.
I can't wait.
You sound very excited.
It's one of those generically awesome sounding names that makes it not sound awesome.
Let me just ask you, though. So, it's a video game, right? Dr. Chaos.
Okay.
If I told you it was a movie, would you be more inclined to watch that than to play the game called Dr. Chaos?
That's a weird question.
Would you listen to the band Dr. Chaos more than you would, which like thing would you rather listen to the album Dr. Chaos, the video game Dr. Chaos, or watch a movie called Dr. Chaos?
I would listen to the album, because I'm sure it would kind of sound like Ween or something.
Interesting. I was thinking like a Megadeth feel. Like literally the guy on the Megadeth covers, like that guy with the bald head
too
scientist.
Hokey. I mean, Megadeth is hokey, but
yeah, they're pretty hokey.
But it just sounds even more hokey than that. I don't know.
But we're going to find out if the game is hokey or not next week, and I guarantee you very few people in our audience have played Dr. Chaos. This one, just from reading the back of the box, seems like a bizarre one. So if you haven't played it yet, definitely play it before next week, because apparently it's like the Goonies 2. So go figure.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll find out for sure next episode. But I'm Michael Esposito. You can find me at Esposito Film on Twitter. Some people might have asked why Sean doesn't give out his Twitter handle. Sean, can you tell people why you don't give out your Twitter handle?
I don't have a Twitter.
You heard it from the man himself. He has a secret Twitter account that he doesn't want people following.
That is not true. It's not true.
Who do you follow on your secret Twitter account? Is it me?
Mogwai,
do you follow me at least?
No. Just Mogwai.
Oh,
the
okay.
band from Scotland.
Yeah. Mogwai, the band, and their first album, Dr. Chaos.
Mr. Beast.
There you go. All right, and this has been Nostalgia. You can find us on Twitter at NostalgiaCast. We're posting cool stuff all the time, and we're posting brand new episodes every Friday at 8 in the morning, so bring your wine and close your curtains.